Moin moin and welcome to Sailing Good Old Boats, or hopefully even welcome back. In today's episode we are going to bring all lines aft on our Ericsson 27 and take a closer look at our mainsail reefing setup.
This morning and afternoon. Seas around 3 feet. Wave detail. North.
Now, while I'm going to prepare some breakfast here, let me fill you in about our plan, how we are going to do this, how we want to bring all lines aft on our Ericsson 27 sloop. First of all, let's talk about the type of reefing system we had in mind for our mainsail. For our single reef point mainsail, we decided to go with a single line reefing system instead of the classic jiffy reef with separate lines for tack and clue. The main reason was simplicity, ease of handling from the cockpit. So with a single line system, the reef tack at the gooseneck and the clue via the outhaul are pulled down and aft at the same time. That makes reefing quicker and safer, especially when conditions start to build. As always, there are of course a few trade-offs. You lose some independent control over the outhaul at the clue, which means less precise tension on the foot of the sail and a little less freedom to fine-tune sail shape against the luff. So the racers amongst you, or more performance-oriented sailors, will probably prefer the classic jiffy reef, where you can trim the luff and foot independently for maximum performance. But for our kind of sailing, the simplicity of a single line reefing system and being able to reef without leaving the cockpit makes perfect sense. Okay, now that we all know what the plan is, let's get to work. That's how it looks like from the inside. I taped it off to be able to squeeze that epoxy into the oversized drilled holes there. It will dry up. In the middle is kind of a pilot hole for my hole saw. And this is a pretty good size disc I got out of it. It's a thick laminate schedule. I'd say about 1/8 of an inch or something like that. It's pretty solid, the inner liner. Like everything with these Ericssons, very well built. And yeah, there's unfortunately not much air within between, which means not much space for the screws. And I got a little too close to the rim over here with one of them, so we'll see how that turns out. So now I'll give it some extra heat to activate the epoxy easier. Up here at the North Pacific it's always a bit fresh. So a little bit of extra heat won't hurt. It hopefully gets the chemical reaction going here. Don't want to get too close though, not that I'm burning anything here. Okay, so that was a success. Seems like that hardened already. It sets in within 5 minutes, it says, and it takes about an hour to be fully cured. So I also made a backing plate for that clutch, which is already threaded just to get a first grip, and then we'll put some self-securing nuts and possibly washers behind it, and bed that all into with bed that in with butyl tape. So that's a aluminum backing plate that I'm going to use for this clutch over here. And it barely fits in there. I tried it out. So it's the same here with the winch installation. I over drilled and filled it with epoxy, and then we'll actually drill to a smaller size so that even if there was a leakage, you know, if the sealant would be failing over the years, that it doesn't get into the core of the laminate here. Yeah, excuse the chaos, guys, but I just want to show you I made backing plates for everything. Those are aluminum or alloy or whatever you want to call that, whether you're in Great Britain or the US of A or somewhere else. Aluminum plates threaded, so I can counter thread that in once I'm done. That's the game plan for now. So now we put that in on the strong point where the triple block goes off, and the clutch has been installed already. It's a cover plate, also with an aluminum backing plate and some self-locking nuts and everything. So that should do it, hopefully. I finally had an opportunity to try out my beautiful new table router that my wife gifted me to my last birthday, and I made this cover plate here to hide the backing plate for the deck organizer. Works like a charm. 316 stainless steel. Just gotta go slow and steady. That should be enough for now. I like this little vise. It's perfect for on a boat. Easily fits into any locker, really. So this should fit on the mast. Yeah, that should be good. Perfect. I must admit that I was somewhat surprised how well this worked out. The shape fit almost perfectly here, and yeah, I just drilled some holes into the aluminum mast foot and then threaded them. So I've decided to use some red Loctite here to make sure that hopefully never ever comes off or works itself loose, and it really tightens up nicely around the mast. So that's the Loctite, and yeah, just let's see how that looks like once we get it all tidied up here. I decided to just use a hand screwdriver to have better control. You probably could have done that also with a electric drill or something. No biggie, I mean, personal preference, but that way it worked out really great, and I had a pretty good idea about how well that actually threaded its way in, and it really, if you get the angle right and point a little bit towards the inside, as you can see here, that helps also to really pin it into the mast, and I doubt that it will ever come out here. Temporarily I had the triple block attached here to the lower end of the boom vang, which is needless to say not ideal. That was just to try out the system and see how it worked, and that whole block will be moved over now to the strong point on the mast. In the first place, I was actually contemplating to drill through the coach roof as well for this, and I decided not to, because obviously the less you do that, the least of a chance there is for a potential leak point somewhere down the road. So I like that idea much better, to put the strong point actually straight onto the mast, on the lower part of the mast here. The free clutch that I found in my starboard locker was unfortunately only a double clutch. That was good enough for the main halyard and the reef line. However, I had to come up with a different idea for my boom vang, for my hydraulic boom vang control line. So I installed this cam cleat here. That works actually really great as long as there's not too much pressure in the sail. So one has to either relieve the pressure to control this and pull it in, or maybe tighten up momentarily with the main sheet. However, the idea is that one would allow the boom to lift a little bit, as we are using a single line reefing system, and there's always a little bit more friction on the clew. So if you can make the boom come up and reef, then it makes it easier, and then tighten up the boom again. So it works good. Now that it was finally time to try it out for the first time, I noticed that there was somehow too much friction in the system. It worked kind of okay, and I had a good technique going with lifting the boom and such for the single line reefing system, but there seemed to be somehow too much friction in the clew. One more time back to my reefing technique. I work from the Cockpit exclusively, and as you can see here, I have used a sail tie to roll up the sail and clean it up a little bit, and I very loosely use the clean up reef points. Then I basically tighten in the actual reefing line by loosening up main halyard, let the sail come down a little bit, and lift the boom with the control line, tighten up again, and then at the very end I pull in the boom vang control line to lower the boom again at the clew. So, however, there's still too much friction on the clew, so I figured I'd get an extra block here and install it basically at the sail, right there at the clew. And hopefully that will ease the friction enough that this becomes a super handy dandy easy thing to do. Just pull the line and everything comes down straight and level. Yeah, what can I tell you guys? It worked like a charm. That was exactly the problem. There was just a little bit too much friction there at the clew, and now here with this block installed, as you can see, everything works out really smooth. And it looks like a little bit of friction point down there where the lines cross, but that's not the case. So it runs forward at this point, and the tension seems to be just perfect. So the sail really comes down in a fashion that pulls the tack forward enough and the clew back enough that we have actually a fairly straight foot without too much extra tweaking. So the last thing that I would like to install is actually a set of lazy jacks. So I tried that out here, and you can see the obvious struggle, as always, without lazy jacks. When you lower the sail like so, you end up basically going forward anyways, because you have to kind of pull it down the last little bit and clean it up. So yeah, logical consequence here at this point, I need lazy jacks. Alright you guys, time to wrap it up for today's episode. That is how far we have come with our little All Lines Aft project at this point. As you might have figured it out already, we are by all means no pros. So if you have some good advice for us or great ideas how to do that easier, better, more efficient, please feel free to drop a comment. We always appreciate that. Also, please like, share and subscribe if you would. That really helps us out to mess with that YouTube algorithm. And don't forget the little bell so you'll be notified whenever we release new content. Beyond that, a big thank you to all our PayPal donors. Thank you so much for your generous contributions. We really appreciate you guys. Yeah, and last but not least, a huge shout out to our Patreons. Thank you so much guys for your continuous support. You really make this all possible and keep this boat afloat. We would like to give a warm welcome to our newest Patreons, Olaf Fund as a helmsman, and also to Laurel Hermes as a deckhand Patreon. Thank you so much for joining the crew. We are glad to have you guys. Thank you for your support. If you also like to join the crew or consider supporting our channel through PayPal donations, please find all the links down in the description box. Until next time folks, fair winds and cheers.